Welcome to the training room brought to you by Lionel University. I'm really excited today for our podcast because I think I'm just going to be listening real hard to the topics that we're going over because I think some of them can really apply to me. So if it seems like I'm asking questions that I really want answers to, I think you're right if that's what you're thinking. Joining me as always is my fantastic co-host Dr. Aaron Nitschke. Aaron, how are you?
I'm great, John. How are you?
I'm really good. And like I said, I'm excited to cover many of the things that we're hoping to cover today. Our guest today is the founder of Born Superhuman. What a fantastic brand. He's a speaker, he's an author, and he's known for helping people to unlock their full potential through performance, through personal growth, through a lot of things that we'll cover today. And I think it's an important topic because sometimes the topic of fitness, which we cover a lot here, is looked at as muscles and performance measures. And sometimes becoming a better version of yourself is not just those things, it's certainly other things. So, again, really, really fun things to talk about today. I'd like to welcome our guest, Dan Metcalfe.
Thank you, John and Dr. Aaron. It's great to be here. And I want to give a shout out to everyone listening, to the trainers. I'm certified as a master trainer. I had my own sports performance gym, 20,000 square foot gym that was world renowned out based in Los Angeles. I've seen a lot of trainers, a lot of coaches, and what you guys do changes lives. And there's nothing better as a purpose than increasing the quality of those you work with. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you. And what a great sentiment to start off with. Aaron and I have both been in the fitness industry for a long time and have been able to experience that. And I think that sort of experience is what keeps us going, keeps us motivated to stay in this industry for sure. Our podcast is called The Training Room, and any great training session deserves a good warm up. We'd like to warm up by hearing a little bit more about you, Dan. So if you could, for those who are not familiar with you, if you could just tell us a little bit about your story and what you do in our great industry.
Yeah, it's great what I do. I love that because I say it's not what we've done that defines us. It's what we do with what we've done. That will be our legacy. And so everyone that's going through things in life, you're just preparing for tomorrow and the next day and the next year. And so embrace everything you're going through because what you've done will allow you to do more. My background, I went from being a soccer player, football player back in England, I trained 8 years with the Royal Marine Cadets. I was meant to go into the military, end up becoming a professional dancer, ballet, jazz, tap, modern, which was a complete shock to all of us, including myself. Ended up playing the lead in Andrew Lloyd Webber shows. For those of you that aren't sure who he is, he wrote the shows Phantom of the Opera, Jesus Christ Superstar, Evita, Cat, Starlight Express, and so many other shows. And I played the lead, toured the world. And when I opened in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Hilton, had an accident on stage, fractured my spine, was paralyzed, lost sight in my right eye at the time, and went through a major transformation of understanding how miraculous and brilliant the body is because we're born to heal. We're all born superhuman. Everybody is. We have incredible abilities. And if we tap into them, and we're not just talking about physical, we're talking about goals, dreams. It's incredible what we are designed to do. The most incredible technology in the world is between your ears, and the programming that goes into that will determine the output and the abilities that you'll achieve. But we thought that, and I'm just jumping through this. I went on to become a head coach of the Olympic program. I was Nike Youth Coach of the Year for soccer. I went on to race the Ironman, open my own gym, as I said. But in 2018, I was out on a bike ride, a training ride, coming back from just a relaxed place where I wasn't even going to wear a helmet that day because I thought it was just relaxed. But I had a metal gate brought down on my head at 22 miles an hour. I was knocked unconscious for over 3 minutes. Part of my brain died. I had to learn to talk again properly, learn to function. I put on about 50 pounds of weight, went through depression, PTSD, concussions. And that and the paralysis are probably the greatest gifts that have ever come to me because it changed my trajectory and my focus to study the brain and understand when we know the technology inside of us and the neural pathways and the messaging and how muscles work. It's incredible what we can achieve, not just to overcome problems, but to realize what we deem as miracles is really because we've dumbed down and numbed down what we should be doing as everyday life. And they're not really miracles, but we term them that because they're not normal, but they should be.
Wow, Dan, that gives me goosebumps just to hear what you experienced. And I'm wondering, because of your brand, the Born Superhuman, and the things that you've experienced, what do you really hope that our audience and people that you share your story with and your brand with really come to understand about what it means to be born superhuman and how maybe you dug in to find that resilience to get back to your superhuman?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. We are going to lean into balance in a little while about movement, and that's part of it. But I want to go back to when we were babies. When we were born, the doctor got the umbilical cord and cut it without asking you as a baby whether you were ready to be separated from your mother that had been your life force since conception. When that umbilical cord was cut, we were immediately on our own, and our system had to basically jump in and keep us alive. Now, you can say we have doctors, we have machines, we have family, everyone's supporting us, no different than we do today. But it was ultimately down to us. Slowly over time, we've forgotten that ability of the body through the brain activity, through neurons, through the synapse and the way we're wired to turn around and say how incredible we are to take that over. And I really think that when we look at what I would love for people to take away today, I would love them to take away that there's more to them that they know is inside of them, but they've given up on, or they've just settled. And I'm not saying settled into being a trainer or a coach or their greatest player. I'm talking about the vision that we had of ourselves. It's not up to other people to see that. It's up to us to shine so much that people can't do anything but be attracted to us. And if I could just share a little story. When I was paralyzed, lying in hospital the night when I got carried off the stage, I lost sight in my right eye, and I didn't know why. And the doctors were gone, everyone had gone. They'd already told me I'm going to be disabled for life and that they're going to have me sign paperwork so I could start getting paid disability. And I refused. But when my eyesight went, and what I realized now is that I had such swelling to the brain that the pressure on the optical nerve going to the occipital lobe had been restricted, so the information wasn't able to flow through. But I didn't want to go to sleep that night because I didn't want the last vision that I had to be of a hospital room, because I didn't know if I'd wake up the next day blind in one eye, whether it was going to come back. And I didn't know. Nobody had told me what was going on at the time, and I don't think they knew. But that was more scary than the paralysis. And when I explain why, it's because vision is so critical for our life. But it was a metaphor that I now realize. When we were kids, we had vision of what we wanted. We were slowly changed in our path or direction. And the vision that we had then was real. It was our dreams, it was our goals. And so everyone again listening today, understand the vision you have is so important. Value it, treasure it. Don't take it for granted that it will always be there. Or some people will say it's too big, it's too massive for you to achieve. Change your vision. But that's only because they've given up on theirs. Embrace your vision, keep your vision, make it healthy, and commit to it, because you can achieve everything you set your heart and mind to.
Dan, you're good. I want to turn this into 10 different podcasts now, but we'll try to stay on track here. One thing I am interested in is, obviously you've gone down this path of focusing on human potential, health, performance. It sounds to me like it was that time in your life where you lost a lot of your function that really inspired you. So you kind of had to dig yourself out of a hole. And to me, what it sounds is that's what kind of took you down this path and inspired this path. Can you speak on that a little bit, the initial inspiration for you to really follow this path?
It went back to something my dad said to me, and I won't go through the story because I know we're limited on time and I've got so many stories. But my dad had once said to me, one day you'll be in that show. This was a show that the very first show I ever saw, and I had never even done a dance step. And I said to my dad, I'll never be good enough. Because to me, these people were brilliant, singing, dancing, acting, skating. It was just incredible. And he said 8 words to me that changed my life, but I didn't know at the time. They came back later. So whatever seeds are planted may not flourish at that time, but everything we hear gets stuck inside of us. He said to me, somebody has to do it. Why not you? When I said I'm not good enough, he said, somebody has to do it. Why not you? Not realizing that was actually what led me to heal from catastrophic injuries. But I have a saying as well in here. Why be a victim when you could be a hero? And there's so many people out there that become victims because of what they're told. They become a statistic. They become a number. Nobody in this world should be or is until they allow it. So once I went through this, John, and started looking at my own healing, instead of listening to what the experts were saying that weren't invested in my life, they were invested in their profession. I then went and did the research, the studying. I started practicing what I was reading and then pivoting when I found out that it wasn't right, because there is no one way. There is nothing that is exactly right for everybody. And we're talking about healing, we're talking about ways to become successful, but there's a plan that you have to come up with information you've gained. And so I really feel that it was my mindset that was the first factor that was so important to imprint in my brain, do the work. And then it was my character to commit to doing it that was the difference between having a mindset and I think I'll do it, but actually seeing it through. So we go brain, which is our power, our mindset is our potential, and our character, which is the deciding factor. Will I do it or will I not? And when you bring all three into alignment, everything is possible.
I love that, Dan. I want to ask about the mindset piece because as we know, the mind is a very powerful thing. And I want to know from your experience how you get people to shift that mindset, because training the body is one thing, it'll respond, but training the mind is a completely different approach, tactic, and I think would take a little bit more time. I'm just curious how you've curated that teaching style and how you've gotten people to kind of get out of their own way when it comes to that mindset so that they can align all of those things together.
Okay, so now we're getting into science that I love, because people think mindset is just psychological. It is, but it's deeper than that. We have roughly today, do you know how many brain cells you have, Dr. Aaron, John?
It depends on the
Great
day
question.
for me.
Yeah.
You have them always the same because we've got neurogenesis of developing, but we have roughly 86 billion brain cells. Do you know how many a baby has when they're born? About 86 billion brain cells, maybe even a few more. But what we don't have is the synapse, the wiring between those brain cells, which is the programming to think the way we think. And how we think is who we are. So what I do is I go back into saying, why do we think the way we think? We have to take the subconscious, which is our reaction, natural reaction, unthought, make it conscious, and then rewire it consistently until it becomes our subconscious, so we change the way we think. But I'll put this, which I think the listeners will really understand. When I was a head coach on the Olympic program, I believed 80 to 90% of performance was mental. And I think most people will agree with that. We hear that all the time. But doing the study, the neural study, looking at the brain, looking at performance, and I've been fortunate enough to work with, again, Olympic world record holders all the way up to people over 100 years old. Performance is 100% mental. Now, we didn't say training, because when you show up on the day, you can't fake the training at high-level competition. You have to have done the training. But when you show up, the training won't carry you. It's the mindset, the ability to tap into 100% of your potential during that event. And we've seen it where someone's going to the finish line. They're about to cross the finishing line. They slow down, they're waving their hands, celebrating, and somebody sprints by them. They gave up that mindset to be their best from the beginning to the completion, the whole way. And that cost them because their mindset shifted for a moment. And everybody listening will understand, because you've gone through something where you thought you were winning and then you thought you could relax. Your training was exactly the same. But at a moment that we lose that mindset, so do we lose the power of the training we've done. And I always put it the +2. It's the X, +2. When we have the right mindset, we will increase our training by what I believe is 2% to overcome and get new personal records, PBs, MVPs, whichever it is, because of the way we approached it, not because of the actual physical training that has to be there, but the mindset takes it to the top level.
Would you say this is a really interesting topic? I'm a sports fan, so I'm always interested in why some people, when the lights are really bright, seem to really maybe even outperform how you would perceive them, whereas others just kind of wilt away and disappear. It sounds to me that you're saying a lot of that is in the training because they're training themselves to be that person. But still, it seems to me that there's that mindset piece that you're referring to when it is showtime. Maybe can you give us some insight into how to train that? How can you become that person that is more likely to show up when it's time to show up?
If you look at the training, if 100% of performance is mental, or even, and I'm not asking everyone to agree with me, go think about it and come up with your own conclusions. But how come 100% of our training is physical? How come we don't do the mental training? And if the mental training has to be as focused as the physical training, there has to be a time set aside for it to do. What's your sport, John?
I ran track and I didn't get so nervous in that sport, to be honest, but I also played soccer and basketball. And I was someone that, like, when the ball got to my feet or into my hands, I could feel everyone looking at me. Whereas track was a little bit more reactive, right? The gun goes off, I was a sprinter, and then you just run like hell until it's over. So there wasn't a lot of thinking involved there.
What's interesting is you just revealed something very fascinating, which is opinions. So when you've got people around you that can give opinions, that can shout, that can affect, that get into your head when you're playing, that's one side of mindset, to be able to shut them out, knowing that the reason they're spectators is they're not on the field, but they do affect us if we haven't planned for it and prepared our brain wiring for that. When you're running, you don't hear too much. If the gun goes off, you're in your own head for 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute. And then by the time you've finished, you haven't had time to cognitively react to the negativity that could be coming in. You're just racing the person next to you. The reality is you're really racing yourself because you're going as hard as you can. But there's somebody else that's a comparison. And so again, it comes down to the mental side of what are we allowing in? We become our environment. And the number one environment that you have to be and protect is the one inside yourself first. So to do that, as I hinted at earlier, we have to go in and prepare our brain to think, because what fires together wires together. So the way we think, if I'm nervous, if I'm going to get nervous, I don't know if I can handle, that's a wiring in your brain. And when the situation arises, that wiring fires together and we have that subconscious reaction that then affects our neurological system. We have that state where we no longer can perform because we're more concerned with other people's opinions than we are the confidence in ourselves. Kobe Bryant said it great. He put in more practice and training away from everybody else. So when he stepped on the court, he knew what he could do and he knew that he outworked everybody. And there's a gentleman I was just talking with. His name's Louis Askey, and he races bikes. My passion is bikes, and he's going to be racing the Tour de France. He's only 24, just turned 25 this month. And he's done incredibly well. And we're talking about 5.5 hour races. And he said in the old days, cyclists used to get in, there'd be a surge, they'd slow down, there'd be a surge, there'd be a breakaway. Now they know how fast they have to be to catch it. And it could time it and your efforts. Now, because of the change in psychology, people are racing from start to finish. And it's 5.5 hours of all out effort. And we're talking incredible pain, pushing 700 watts for 20, 30 minutes, which is killing the pain in your body. I've been there and seen, not at that wattage, or I'll be racing the Tour de France. But I said to him, what's harder, the physical pain or the mental pain? The mental stamina, the mindset you have to have. And he says, 5.5 hours, your legs are burning the whole time. You're breathing. It's hard to stay in the race because of the pain. But we got used to that. We expect it. And so when it comes up, we know how to handle it. He said, the hardest thing is focusing for 5.5 hours because I have to stay an inch away from the rider's wheel in front and it can get a little sketchy. It looks like they're going to crash. But if I slow down or back off, somebody else will jump into that 3-inch gap. And now I may be 10, 15, 20 places back trying to recover because I lost my mental focus for a second. And I said to him, how do you train for 5.5 hours? He says, you can't train for 5.5 hours. You train your mindset to think second by second. and coming up with every scenario you can and how I will handle it. And when you come up with a plan of how you'll handle it, and then you practice repetitively handling it, you won't be surprised or scared when something comes up because you've got a plan. But it's much more than that. And I have stuff about rewiring. One of my specialties is rewiring the brain for higher performance of everything in life, relationships or personal success or sports. But that gives you a little summary of how we need to approach it.
Yeah, and just to follow up, you gave me a little insight into myself there, I think, because I was a 400-meter runner in school. And my joke has always been I was good at about 350 of it. And I used to say that back then. And now I'm thinking to myself, did I convince myself that I wasn't really a 400-meter runner? Maybe I convinced myself I was just a 350-meter runner.
Huh.
You are what you think.
Yeah. So
to
that, I was just going to ask, what role then, and maybe how big of a role, does belief play in physical transformation and performance?
I love you brought that up because I hear the word hope and I don't believe in hope. I think hope is the worst word you can have. It's a procrastinator, not for other people. I hope you have a great day because I'm not in control, but for ourselves, I hope I achieve this. I hope I get this time. It's a procrastinator because we're waiting for an external force to bring us something. So I changed the word hope to believe or belief. If I believe in myself, it's actionable. I'll go to work. If I don't really believe, I can't give 100%. I'm waiting for something else to prove to me. So I think belief is everything. And we have to be realistic, but not realistic to our own level of knowledge, realistic to what our potential is. And that's where testing comes in, going and getting your VO2. What can I grow? What is my lactic threshold? How can I improve that? Because my potential is greater. And there's a great story. Another story, I've got thousands of them. Roger Bannister, the first man to ever break the 4-minute mile. And do you guys know why nobody had done it before?
It seemed impossible.
Yeah.
Because, any idea? Because scientists and doctors said that the body couldn't handle that amount of effort, that you couldn't provide enough oxygen to stay alive, that your lactic threshold would be so high, your VO2 max would stop, it would cease, and you would die. And that was coming from scientists and doctors. And so when people got close to that 350-meter mark, they turn around and go, okay, this is the best I can do. And I better not push harder because I'm risking injury or even death. But once he did it, you can't qualify for the Olympics if you're not running sub 4-minute miles. And there's thousands of people that have now. And that was mindset. So once someone broke the barrier and then we understood the possibility, suddenly we elevated our own potential instead of being held back by thought or misinformation.
Wow, you got a lot of track and field nostalgia going on in my head right now. And I do believe people are running 2 miles at a sub 4-minute pace now. So we've come a long ways. So Dan, I know one thing that we really wanted to talk about with you was the concept of balance. It's something that you're very passionate about. Now, before we get there, I just want to make sure we do something for our listeners. We kind of introduced your brand, Born Superhuman. Can we just briefly talk about what superhuman really means for you before we get into balance?
Sure, yeah. Born Superhuman. It is the ability to overcome obstacles that seem impossible. And that could be physiological, psychological, biological, neurological. And that has to start with ourselves and then move on. We hear about the lady that picked up the car because her child was underneath it. Where did she get that strength from? She had it. We just didn't know. And I would say everybody has strengths, both emotionally, physically, as we talked about all the areas that we don't know until we hit ground zero. Until that moment of desperation comes in, we don't know how our power really is. Yet there's stories that inspire us. All of us have that potential. All of us have that strength. But when we adapt into the need, when there's suddenly something that is no longer, and I'm a big believer in character, that's a whole nother story about choices. But when people said I had no choice, that's when we tapped into our greatness. Why do we have to wait until the biggest struggle to tap into our greatness? We're all born superhuman.
I love that. And I love the the whole concept of just self-belief being the driver for people being able to achieve, because it's probably something we've all trained a lot of people. I think a lot of people get in their own way, right? It's their own mindset that kind of prevents them from
Yeah.
getting a lot of the goals and the success that they're hoping to have. Again, anyway, that's a whole other podcast. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah.
I see you have something on
No, I'd
that.
love to add one thing to that. We give up on our biggest dreams. So when I train people with balance that maybe haven't walked or gone through strokes, and they say, I just want to walk around the block again. That's all I want. I just want to walk around the block. But that's not a big enough dream. And I think as trainers, we don't encourage our clients to think big enough. Because I said, for example, someone wanted to walk around the block. What would you love to do again that you never did? I shouldn't say again. What's the one thing you'd love to do you never did, or do again that's your favorite memory with physical walking? Oh, I'd love to walk up that mountain. I'd love to go to the beach. I can't anymore. I said, okay, let's aim for that, because to get there, we're going to walk around the block. And I think if people come in as trainers and really get to know their clients and say, what is your biggest dream? Not what's your dream, what's your biggest dream? Let's work towards that, because even if we don't get there, we will surpass the basic reason that you're here today. And I think when we really tap into that, now we get people to start thinking bigger. We start changing the mindset. We start having goals that are exciting for both the trainer and the client. Because I think sometimes when a client comes in, they've got bigger dreams. They just say, I just want to lose weight, or I just want to get a little bit stronger. I just want to firm up. That's not exciting for a trainer either, because we do that again and again. We're excited for their success, but it doesn't inspire us because we're not really engaged in the final result. Whereas if someone came in and said, I want to go on stage at the Mr. Olympia physique competition for the over 60s, you go, okay, now let's go to work. Because along the way, even if you don't get there, you're going to be in the best shape of your life. Now, I'm challenged as a trainer. And when I'm challenged, I get more invested as well. So I think get to know the dreams of your clients, and also get to know your dreams. Because you can't get the right clients if you don't have your own dream of where you want to go, what you want to do.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think I like the way that you phrase it about dreams versus just the why behind what is driving you to pursue this goal, or why do you want to become more fit or lose weight or whatever it is. You're taking it a step further and really tapping into, what do you dream about? What's your dream big? And I like that phraseology of it. And it's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
So moving on to the topic of balance, if you can kind of define what it is first, and then some of your thoughts on this passion of yours, because it seems like it's something that is very impactful, not just for you, but it's probably fair to say millions of people out there.
Yeah, thank you for opening this up. After I came back from my paralysis, I became a personal trainer. I was certified. I worked at Gold's Gym. I worked at Powerhouse Gym. I started my own classes. I opened my own gyms, as I said. And I always ended up getting the clients that were injuries or coming back from something. And normally it's because it's a liability. We don't sometimes want to work with people that potentially we could get sued or hurt them more. So we tend to avoid it. But what I found was movement was the key to everyone's ability to heal faster and better. So when someone's limited in when they can move, we end up having a limitation of where we can go. If I look at it as babies, and after my brain injury and partial brain death and wanting to learn to move properly again, I went and studied babies and how they learn to walk. And what I found is there's a massive population of people that are desperate to move again, and yet they don't really have any classes that are progressive, or coaches or trainers that are actually progressive in outside the basics. Now, I can give you some statistics really quickly. 1 in 4 people over 65 will fall every year. 10% will die before that year's out. Falls are the number one cause leading to death. There's more than 13 million visits each year to the emergency room or doctors from a fall. We have, in the fall prevention programs, back in, I believe it was 1999, 29.4 deaths for every 100,000 is what was going on from falls. 29.4. With all the technology, the training, the knowledge we now have in 2020 was the last study, 69.4 deaths every 100,000. So it's more than doubled in size relative to falls. And so this is an area that when we talk about longevity, it's not just life, it's longevity of need. People say if you own a food store, the chances are you're going to be kept in business because people need food. People need balance. So when I started looking into it and realizing balance has nothing to do with muscles. Now, people would turn around and go, of course, it's got everything to do with muscles. How do we move? That's the strength. When I studied babies, if muscles was the way babies learned to walk, we'd all be taking them to gyms, but nobody goes to a gym when they're babies to learn how to walk. We naturally strengthen by moving, by standing, by running, by climbing, by adventuring. And there's millions and millions of people around the world that have never set foot in a gym and yet are out doing every activity they want to with confidence, strength, and pride. What we have is we have brain connection to the body. That is balance. And I've done so much studies. We've got a government study about to go on as well with a product I created and founded. And it's going against what we've been doing, which is just get up and lift your leg, stand, balance, stand on one leg. Okay, stand on the other leg. If you can hold it for 10 seconds, you got good balance. But there's two types of balance: static balance, which is exactly that. And then we've got dynamic balance, which is as a runner in here, as a dancer, as an athlete, how can we stay balanced while we're moving? And that's where the majority of fall risk comes from. So I'm going to say something here that people are going to push back on. And I love it because I love being controversial when I can prove the point. And this is scientific proof, not my own opinion. We've all heard of muscle memory, right? Do you have muscle memory, John, from running?
This feels like a trick question. I'm gonna go with yes. Although I know muscle memory is not maybe the best way to put it. I'm gonna go with yes. There are some trained pathways in there.
Dr. Aaron, muscle
Yeah.
memory?
I would say ish.
Yes. You both are jumping out. You've got controversy here. Let's go. I'm not sure in America, is it controversy? Controversy, I don't know. Anyway, there is no such thing as muscle memory. But there's muscle training, muscle repetition for movement. And people say, well, if we don't have muscle memory, what is there? If I took your bicep and I cut it out of your body and put it on a slab, is it going to move? And people will say, no, of course not. It's out your body. I'm like, okay. But if I took two electrical impulses at the opposite end of the muscle and I inputted those electrical impulses, the muscle would jump. It will react. That's how muscles move. It comes from the electrical impulse that comes from the thought. So I want to do a bicep curl. I think about it. I grab in there. I now send the messaging through my brain to the cerebellum that then goes up to the motor cortex, sends down the neuron information and connects to our bicep. And then we have that movement of the muscle from the neuron memory that's coming in. Now, repetitively doing a movement will make the muscle good at that movement. But if somebody has a stroke and they now can no longer move one side of their body, if we had muscle memory, it would still move because the muscle's still exactly the same. It doesn't because we've taken away the neurons. So practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. So what we tell ourselves to do and how we do it would then inject the information for the form that would then go to the muscle. This is the right way to do it. And we've seen when people improve their technique, so does the muscle improve, but it's really the messaging from the brain realigning the movement to do it a certain way. And then the muscle will react to what's happening to the information going. So when we look at that, look at the power of the brain into our own muscles. Arnold Schwarzenegger used to lie there at nighttime and think about the shape of his biceps, and his biceps changed to the way that he envisioned them, because now we're sending neuron information of thought into the muscle, and that goes to visualization, preparation, and we don't spend enough time focusing on that. So if people want a new dimension to their training, if they want a longevity in their business, in the way they can do, age is not the reason that people lose their balance. It's lack of movement. It's lack of confidence. And I'd love to go into this a little bit more, maybe with a little break in between for questions, but don't look at age as a limiting to your potential as a trainer. If you look at what you can bring to someone and turn their life around, it's not how they look, it's how they live. And balance training is something that I'm bringing to change. We're getting government, like I say, research being done on it. But also, I've trained Olympic world record holders. And when we focus on brain to body, the body would change quicker than when we focus just on the body without engaging the brain.
It gives new meaning to the mind-body connection, the way that you're describing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dan, for our listeners, we were talking about balance, and then you gave a lot of great statistical information on falls. But just to clarify, when we're talking about balance, we're not just talking about your ability to stand on one foot, like you said. It's the ability to have control over your body under a number of different circumstances, because we live on Earth, right? So there's a lot of different circumstances that we're going to come into on a day-to-day basis. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it should be 360-degree movement. And I say, if you want to go to a bench press competition and you got to bench press 350 pounds to win, you're not going to train with 200 pounds. You'll train with 450 pounds or 400 pounds to make sure you can do it. Our training has to be strong enough and great enough that it covers every aspect of our success. And I look at it, balance isn't just walking or running or the athlete. It's actually getting off the floor, getting up off of the floor. It's being able to crawl. It's being able to climb. All those things that do with balance, being able to walk on a beam and feel successful. And if we're not successful, we don't see it as a failure. We see it as a challenge. And we go back and try it again instead of limiting ourselves off of embarrassment, off of lack of belief, as you said, Dr. Aaron, or off of lack of commitment to your future. Because there was a study that was done back in 2010 where they took 1,600 people over the age of 75 and measured their balance with very simple balance metrics. Those people, the top 30%, lived 8 years longer across the board. 8 years just by having movement balance, the ability to move, as you said, not just stand and be motionless because then the world goes by us, but engagement, because then we're happier. Think about when we were growing up and when you were running and all the different stuff you did, Dr. Aaron, and everyone listening, we had so much fun doing the sports. Even when it was painful, it made us feel great.
Yeah.
Then we went to, I'm not as good anymore. We lost the enjoyment. It became a chore. It became something that was painful. I don't want that anymore. I just want to rest and recover. And then we'd get comfortable. And comfort is aging. That's where it comes from.
You know, I over the years, I had a lot of older clients, and the word confidence came up earlier.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were not confident with movement. They were afraid of falling, as a matter of fact. And I think for that very reason, they were probably avoiding the thing that would help them most to be stronger and avoid falling. So to me, and you've already mentioned this, but it seems like the mindset, the character that you mentioned earlier, is a huge driver for maintaining balance and ability to have coordination, to live with vitality and feel confident about moving as we age.
Right.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up and you can see me smiling because this is getting to the meat of the studies that I've done. So if you walk to the edge of a sidewalk and it's a 3 or 4 inch drop and then walk across the road, you'll walk up to it confidently, you'll stand there, you'll look, and then you'll walk. But if that edge was a 300-meter drop onto rocks, you wouldn't approach it in the same way. You'd creep, you'd get a little bit closer, you'd test the ground, you'd look over the edge if you even got to the edge, because there's a fear factor. So now we're going to take this backwards. The reason that happens is because the brain recognizes danger. And when the brain recognizes danger, it then protects us in an area called the periaqueductal gray. It's in the midbrain. And when that senses danger, it forces us to move slower. Even if we tried to do it, most people, unless they're missing, and some people do. You may have seen Alex Anholt, who did free solo climbing up El Capitan. He was missing a part of his brain that identified fear and danger. It's a brilliant documentary if you haven't seen it. One of for me, the greatest athletic ability performances in the history of athletics. But that's what goes on, and it stops us. Now, let's take this back a little bit. When someone's fallen, and we've heard, oh, falls are dangerous. They are, without a doubt. We got 95% of hip breaks, hip fractures come from a fall, and we know the survival rate of those is very low. But once we've fallen once or have a fear of falling, That now goes into our brain that we begin to get scared of movement because of the risk. There's a part of the cerebellum, and for those that don't know, it's the back of the brain. They call it the mini brain, the little brain at the back, that really is the main control center of action for movement. And about 95% of your neurons sit right above the spinal column, close to the cerebellum. There's a part of that called the pyramis within the cerebellum. There's a little part that was studied back at Bristol University. And they discovered the pyramis that is connected directly to the periaqueductal gray. It's called the PAG. And I'd love for you to research it, because the more you get into it, the more exciting you understand potential of movement and strength. The cerebellum stores memory of danger, of movement, of things that were dangerous to you. So when a senior or somebody falls, and people with Parkinson's, MS, stroke survivors, it now becomes a survival reaction within the brain to don't do this, because the brain is there to keep you alive. So you could actually move fast, you could actually move better, but because now the information memory is now being stored, it's being sent to your midbrain and going, slow down. Now we're out of control of our reactions and our movements. So the way that we retrain balance, movement, ability, or train it higher, is to make sure that we're treating that midbrain to the confidence and ability that we can react faster. So if somebody begins to fall, or a classic example, a deer in headlights, knows it should move, but it becomes so fearful that it doesn't move. It's the same in humans, that when we begin to fall, we know we're falling, we should move, but the brain isn't confident. There's a misinformation wiring going on to say, I could react. So we slow down and then we fall. And then it becomes an escalated fear. And when we stop moving, we stop growing, we stop the ability to function. So there's certain techniques that I teach in the product that I have that is really about how do we release the fear from the cerebellum pyramis and give confidence back, which is what it all comes back to, you, John. The confidence that we have, that when we know we can do something, we react quicker. And that reaction is both thought, but it's really sensory. Because until we feel it or react to what's happening, we will never react fast enough. And that's why when you train balance the proper way, and when I say balance, we're talking about all types of movement, we're really strengthening the brain, then we can increase athletic movement, we can increase gymnastic ability, we increase just regular people that want to live better longer by maintaining their balance after a fall or coming back from it.
I appreciate the way that you connected that fear piece. One of the coolest classes I ever took in any of my studies was a sport psychology, sport and exercise psych class. And there was this whole discussion on, after an athlete is injured, they are far more tenuous in how they approach their training. And it's connecting to that very thing, the brain holding on to that fear of re-injury and moving in a different way. Instead of recovering, it's avoiding. And now that makes complete sense, hearing you explain it that way.
Yeah, it's fascinating when you look at the brain. It is our power source. There's only two things that we have in life that we couldn't lose and still live: our heart, but we can replace the heart. But without a heart, you're going to die. That's, for me, is the life force. That's the oxygen. And then we have our power force, which is our brain. And how many people say, I love these new Air Jordans, or I love this new basketball, or I love this soccer ball, but we don't give love to our brain. And that is it. We don't give love to our heart. Physically, when I was coming back from my brain injury, I put my hand on my head, closed my eyes. I love my brain. Whatever you give love to flourishes. We've seen it in every relationship, in everything we love to do. You give love to an injury instead of cussing it out. Oh, my knee, I can't stand it. It's just a success story in progress. So give love to the things you want to develop, and they will grow because it's part of your relationship with your brain, your mindset, and your body.
That's a fantastic reframe of how to look at something. And I think that's a valuable tool for trainers to have, as to help their clients be able to reframe their thoughts. Because I think we'd all agree that a lot of our clients' thoughts are what kind of get in the way of them moving forward and moving toward their goals. So with that in mind, a lot of people in the fitness industry, a lot of trainers, they are experts in exercise science, kinesiology, mechanics, and that sort of thing. And you mentioned earlier what fires together, wires together, and that's emotional, the neurons that are firing off emotions, but it's also the neurons that are firing off your muscles. How can fitness professionals start to bring some of this together into their practice? Because I do think it's something that's lacking for the most part in our industry, is bringing the mindset part, the psychological part into it, because it feels out of scope, or we don't feel like we know exactly what we're doing, or maybe we have an attitude of just do it. And I think that can only get you so far. So how can professionals start to integrate that side of things into how they coach their clientele?
Yeah, great question. I think there's two sides to it. We can only teach what we know because there's the imposter syndrome, but then there's the real imposter. So when we pretend to make things up without studying it, you're going to fall flat at some point because you're going to come across people smarter than you, that know more, that would challenge you. And when you can't back up, you don't have to agree with them, but you have to be able to back it up in a conversation. And it has to be quantifiable and qualifiable. It can't just be an opinion. So there's the first side. We can only teach what we know. And then I also believe we can only teach what we practice. So if you want to be able to teach it, you've also got to go try it and you've got to experience it. And if you don't believe it, don't teach it, because all you're going to do is you're teaching something that's not passionate to you. That's why I'm so passionate, because I've lived it. I've had to live it. I didn't have an option. This was thrown at me, or become a statistic. And none of us should ever be that. So I think go study mindset. But mindset is a non-quantifiable symptom, if that's the right way to put it, because we're all different. There is nothing that we can turn around and say, this is the right mindset to have. How do I get it? There's not one way to get it, and it taps back into us. But there is a way to develop a mindset that serves you, and we won't do things that don't serve us or that aren't passionate for us. But I would say go study the brain, understand wiring of the brain, understand how we think, understand how to rewire to change. We have therapists that do it over the world that get people to think different. And I still think a lot of therapists are behind the neuroscience. They've just learned how to rewire messaging by saying things again and again. But when we understand how, I think we can get there quicker. I think we can actually turn people around much quicker to get more. And so I think it's a fascinating addition. There's, like you said, there's very few people doing it. If you want to stand out in an industry that's focused on the body, bring more to the body and understand the whole body. This year, I'm going to be up at Mr. Olympia. I got a massive booth up there. I was asked by, or given the opportunity by Dan Solomon to come in and be a presence at Mr. Olympia on something they've never had there before, the health and wellness and mental side of how do we say. I've got other things as well, blood flow restriction, which I'm a huge fan of, and some other companies that are coming with me that are experts, because I'm not going to pretend to talk about something I don't know, but things that I know are impacting because of experience and studies, research, and personal experience. But it's going to come in. The earlier you get in, the more you'll be able to lead and be the standout person. Start off just within your gym, and then within your community, and then within your city, and then within your state, and then within the country. And the only thing I can promise is what we're talking about today, the brain and mindset, is never going to go away for those that are high performers, high achievers, and are willing to do the work. So get in there and learn it.
Dan, I think that's a great way for us to start to wrap things up. Now, Aaron, I didn't want to cut you off if you had one more thing that you wanted to ask about.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Like I said, we started off with a warm up. We just went through a nice little training session with you. And now we're going to cool down with some of our final takeaways. And then any last words from you, Dan. So, Dr. Aaron, any final takeaways from what we've learned in the last 51 minutes?
Yeah, I think the reframe about what is your dream? What do you dream about? I think is something that is so powerful. It's so simple in concept, but when you put it out there, it's like that notion of manifestation. Like, I'm dreaming of this and you can achieve it. And that belief plays such a massive role in physical transformation and performance. I would say those were my top two.
I was along the same lines. When we talk about goal setting and when we teach goal setting, we often talk about being practical and reasonable about our goals so that they're achievable and we can gain momentum. And that makes logical sense.
Sure.
But humans are not purely logical people, right? So when you talked about thinking big with the goals, that resonated with me because what's going to keep you going is a goal that you're truly inspired by all the time. Just a walk around the block is not the most inspiring goal. It's a practical goal and a reasonable goal, but it's not that inspiring. Whereas hiking up a mountain that's nearby, that might be a truly inspiring goal. So I think there's certainly room to be practical and reasonable, and you absolutely should as a trainer. But at some point, when we're trying to coach people to be a better version of themselves, it does seem to me that a big part of the way that we're going to do that is to find what inspires them. So thinking big is my big takeaway for our conversation today. Dan, any last words from you before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'd love to leave with this one. Aging is the excessive pursuit of sedentary comfort. I'll say that again. Aging is the excessive pursuit of sedentary comfort. We all love comfort. And you'll notice as we age, we take less risks. We don't spend as much time pursuing those passions. We don't want to feel the pain that we used to feel anymore because we remember what it felt like, but we forgot the euphoria. We forgot the endorphins of how it made us feel. And there's nothing wrong with comfort. But if you go for comfort after doing the challenges, you'll enjoy life even more and you won't age in the same way. So enjoy the comfort, but don't make it sedentary. Get out and do things and use that comfort as your recovery.
I love it.
Yeah, so well said. And Dan, where can listeners connect with you and connect with all the great products that you have out there?
Yeah, thank you very much. You can go to bornsuperhuman.com and also totalbalancecompany.com. I have a course coming out to train trainers on the new programs for balance that would turn around how people succeed. We're going to be having these products in gyms for aerobics classes and training. It's incredible what you can get out of it. If you want abs, thighs, and buns, it's pretty dynamic there as well. So yeah, totalbalancecompany.com, bornsuperhuman.com. And then I have both of those on Instagram. My own personal Instagram is Dan Metcalfe, METCALFE_official. And I always answer, send me DMs, put comments in there. I will respond.
I'll be in there soon. You've got a brand new fan over here, Dan. So thank you so much. I don't think I'm supposed to say this, but I think this is the favorite episode of mine that we've done so far, Aaron.
I'd agree. 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
That only sounds good if you say this is my favorite episode we'll ever do. That's what I'm looking for.
We might have you on again. So
Yeah.
So it might be that one. But thank you, Dan, again for being on with us. Thanks, Dr. Aaron. Thank you, Lionel University. This was a great training session, and we hope to see you again next time here on The Training Room.